What's going on, everybody? It is Chris Aiken from Aftershocks, and just wanted to remind you before we give you this next great interview that you should be subscribed to the CMS Podcast Network, cmspn.com. That is the web address. You can watch, you can listen, you can subscribe. Everything you need to do to catch not only this episode, but everything that we've done in the past. It's all over there on the CMS Podcast Network, as well as great shows from the Classic Metal Show, Shockwave Skull Sessions, Talk to Me, and of course, Aftershocks TV. So sign up today and you will never be without entertainment again. All right, enough of this. Let me give you the interview you came here to see. Awesome. All right, well, here we go. Welcome to another episode of Aftershocks at aftershockstv.com on the CMS Podcast Network. And joining me today on the podcast, I've got from San Francisco Bay Area metallic space rockers glitter wizard. We got guitarist Lorfin Terrafor with us. What's going on, Lorfin? How you doing, man?
I'm doing pretty good. How you doing?
Doing all right, man. Can't complain. Thanks for coming on. Obviously, a big fan of the band, and we'll get into it, man. Let's just talk a bit about, I guess, what the band's been up to. Over the last, I guess, 6 to 8 months since the pandemic pretty much has taken place. I mean, I know you guys have released a couple of, cover tunes that really came out great. Fairies Wear Boots and Race with the Devil. Awesome song from The Gun back in the day.
Yeah.
So anything else in the works? You guys, any potential new music on the horizon or anything like that going on?
Yeah, we've been kind of tinkering away at songs here and there. Just we wrote about 5 or 6 songs. We're going to kind of we've been practicing when we can, still trying to, be proper about everything in these times. Right. But, we've been, we got about I think it's 5 songs, maybe 6. But yeah, we did a little home recording kind of stuff. And, we're kind of working on that a little bit. It's just a little something different, just that we were kind of messing around with too. And we're still writing, I still writing a lot of songs. I know each of the band members are doing their own thing and the times apart, and then we come together and it's just all right, let's do it kind of thing. So
yeah, man. Yeah, no, absolutely, man. I just want to, start off. I mean, because for people that don't know about the band, I just want to take you back a bit to when the band first started, which was, I believe, it was around the late 2000s. Talk a bit, I guess, about how you guys first sort of got together to form, a 70s sounding band, and how difficult really was it at the time, I guess, to find like-minded musicians who wanted to play, a sound that was, I guess, considered by many to be sort of nostalgic and not really very common at that time. I mean, it is now, but when you guys started, it was still more of a nostalgic sound.
Yeah, I mean, it's music that I've always loved, and the band actually existed before I was a part of it. There was, they had another guitar player. This was in the very, very beginning. I remember working. Or I went and saw them and I was like, oh man, this band's great. I like the direction they're kind of going, and then I was like, and thinking about little things here and there where it's I would do this or I would do that. And, this is really cool. This is kind of close to what I like. And then I knew the singer, and then I hadn't actually played, I played drums too a lot. And I played drums in more bands than guitar. And then I knew the singer, and he was just like, you play guitar? Why don't you try out? Our guitar player just quit. And then that's kind of how it started going from there. And then people, it was difficult at first where people were like, oh, this is this niche-y thing, and not a lot of people were into it. But we just held true to what we liked, and we were like, oh. And then eventually people kind of started loving that style of music again. And then that's when everything started working out for us a little more. So,
oh yeah, that's awesome, man. So, what was? I mean, I know you just said you weren't an original member when it first started, but I know you said you've been there though. For the most part, I think you've been there for the most of the time that band's been around. What was sort of the original concept of the band, and I mean, how much has it changed, visually and musically since you guys, started out, over, a decade ago?
Well, when I first joined, I was the new guy, right? So and just kind of bringing my style into it a little more.
Okay.
They had they had the song Mirror Man already written, but
Okay.
like kind of when I was trying out for the band, I was like, hey, they were like, oh, let's see what you got, learn this one song. They gave me, back then it was, listen to the CD to learn.
Right.
And I learned it, and then I was like, actually, I hope I didn't take too much liberty, but I kind of rewrote how it went. And then they were like, oh, and they're like, oh, that sounds pretty good, actually. And we still had that same concept of where we wanted to go, but we just continued to like push ourselves as musicians more and more, make the songs not necessarily more like technically difficult, but like more unique, trying to find a very unique sound. I don't, I can rewrite a Sabbath song all day, but trying to find like something that's we like in the vein of what we like and also making it ours, kind of.
That would sound like a carbon copy pretty much, right?
Yeah, exactly. Not putting down a lot of bands that are out there, but like some bands you hear and you're like, oh, this is this style, it's very like, I wanted to not, and I know the band feels the same way. It's like, we didn't want to be like categorized so easily, it's not just like they are this or they are that.
Sure.
Sometimes we get critiqued on that, but I mean, it's what we like too. We just want to keep pushing ourselves,
Sure. Yeah, no, totally, man. I mean, and speaking of the music, man, I mean, I really thought you guys stepped it up on the last record on Opera Villains, man. I think, I think it's definitely out of the three albums, I think it's the most complete, musically. I mean, I thought, Hollow Earth Throw was a great record too, but I just thought it was lost a little of that heavier edge where that it was on Solar Hits, where I feel on Opera Villains, it's sort of like the two, just it was like an amalgamation, a coalescing of the two, and you added some extra stuff too with like the songs like Fear of the Dark and Rats, I do it really cool and a little different from what you guys had done before. I mean, considering that, the intention, I think I remember reading that, from the inception, the band that you guys wanted to make it sort of like a stoner glam sort of sound. But now with the sound you have now is definitely, I think, a little, it's definitely, I think, progressed from there. Is what you envisioned when you guys sort of started out. I mean, is it what it is now with Opera Villains? Or, I mean, or I should say, has it really taken on, I should say, a much different turn than what you really, sort of originally set it out to be? Or are you just keeping, the progression going? I mean, is it just, I mean, you guys aim for a specific sound each record, or you really do want to change it up every time you put out something new?
Well, that goes back to pushing ourselves, like we could, just like how I said, we can rewrite the songs. Like we can rewrite our own album over and over again too, but we want to kind of change it. Solar Hits was, that was the first full length we did. I'm on all the recordings.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I'm on that one too. And that one, we kind of brought a little more of a psychedelic vibe. We had the late Steve McKay, R.I.P., from who played on Funhouse, played on that album. So it brings a little more of a trippy aspect to it. And then just progressing from there, kind of pushing ourselves, then we went into Hunting Gatherers, and, I started writing more of the songs, and it kind of got a little more stonery then. And then the Hollow Earth tour was like a little progressive. It was kind of like really pushing the limits of what we can do. And then Opera Villains is more of a solid album. It's still all over the place. It's very diverse, but it's, the songwriting on there is very solid and all across the board. And we try to differentiate like the live performance between the recording, right? We want it to be two separate experiences for the band, really.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah. Yeah, no, it makes sense. Absolutely. I mean, and being, your guys' band, I mean, Glitter Wars, you're obviously you incorporate a lot of the theatrics and stage presence in the band. And obviously, you have a good, you have a good mix of that classic '70s hard rock sound in there. So it's really kind of hard to really pin you guys down into a specific sound or genre, which is, I'm sure, exactly how you guys, want it to be. Like you said, you don't want to sound like every other '70s band. But that, I guess that also opens up a lot of, a lot of doors for more opportunities to connect with music fans in general that is sort of outside of that, purview of the stoner rock world. But at the same time, on the flip side, I mean, because you guys don't necessarily fit into a specific area, it could also sort of like, I guess, a lot of, leave a lot of, rock fans, sort of not really giving you a legitimate shot because you're different and don't necessarily check all those boxes of what they're used to hearing and, what they prefer to hear, I guess. But do you find that you get a better reaction with the band? Do you guys feel like you get a better reaction and more attention, being sort of, say, that different band on a bill, say you're on a stoner rock bill, but, you guys are, like I said, a little bit different, obviously, with not just your sound, but obviously with your stage presence. Do you feel like you get a better reaction being with a generic, sort of stoner rock, bill than you would, say, if you're on like a, a different bill with a bunch of, different sounding bands where it's not all sort of, that same sort of '70s sounding stuff?
Yeah, I mean, we play with all kinds of different bands. Like we play with garage rock bands, and we'll play with the heaviest of metal bands, and we'll play, and we'll play with the ones that we usually get the most judgment on are like the heavier, very particular metal crowd.
Okay.
Typically, where it's just like, these guys aren't metal.
Mm-hmm.
They're not metal enough for this or that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, I mean, we played. I remember we played a show with the old band Riot, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
I guess they're Riot 5 now, or whatever the fifth rendition, whatever it is.
Sure.
But and I love that band, and I was so stoked, and then like one or two people like commenting on us playing, they're just like, "What the hell is this? These guys aren't metal, like this, that." We're just like, you know what? Ultimately, at the end of the day, we all feel like we have as the band, we have a pretty eclectic style in music. We like everything. And we try and bring all of those influences into the music as well.
Okay.
Not to, and this goes, like I said, going back to rewriting a song, we try not to pigeonhole ourselves too much. Like, we try and have the diversity, and it also gives us freedom with songwriting as well. Like, if we're not so like in one category, we can actually go into another thing, or like, wave back and forth in between the two. And then that's where we kind of find our niche for ourselves, kind of.
Sure. No, absolutely. Well, I mean, speaking of niche, I mean, I think one of the reasons why I personally, I've always been a fan of you guys is because you inject, a sense of humor and entertainment that you don't really find often within, the current hard rock scene in general, which a lot of times is a scene that, for the most part, especially with a lot of the stoner bands, it has more of a serious vibe to it in terms of the visuals, I think, of music, where you guys are obviously total opposite of that. Do you think by having, the theatrical and that humorous approach to the music, do you think that a lot of hard rock fans and metal fans, which I guess you just kind of, alluded to, they might tend to look at the band as sort of, maybe you guys are, even though you're not, they might look at you being sort of like a gimmicky, goofy band. You got the Macho Man, which, I mean, I love. I think that's hilarious, but some people are just so serious with their music. Do you think, just by the optics, do you think that might tend to have some fans not really take you guys so seriously?
I mean, yeah, I definitely think that is a thing.
Yeah.
But how I look at it, like, when I see a show, I'm going to a show. I can listen to the record at home, right? I can hear the record, and the record is supposed to be the best the band has played anyways, right? They rehearse, they take extra tries at a song, right? This is the way they want it, right? But the live show, I'm going there for all sorts of stimulation for a band. I'm going for visual aspect, and I'm going for, audio. Like, I want to be overly stimulated there. I want to, and when we play, I want to, we like having a good time. Like everybody in the band likes having a good time. So we try and portray that in the music too. We're not too serious, and we sometimes think that it's a little goofy to be too serious about things. Like I get it if you're like extremely heavy and crushing and like, this riff is just like death, or something. But like, so at the same time, our music is kind of upbeat. We like having a good time. We like making it pretty user friendly across the board. We just like good music and having a good time ultimately. So.
Sure. Yeah, man. Well, I mean, it definitely shows. I mean, it is a great time at a Glitter Wizard show, man. I will say that, well, cool. I mean, I mentioned earlier. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Is like the stuff is always second to the music, which is what I like to hear. Where it's like, oh, like this band plays great live and they shred and they also dress up and they look crazy while they're doing it, right? It's it's not the first thing. It's not like, oh, this band dresses up and they do this and that's like the first thing they say about the band. They first talk about the music, like the thing we all focus on.
Sure. Yeah, obviously that's the most important part. But yeah, I mean, and like you said, you just nailed it on the head. I mean, if you listen to the music, obviously you guys, have great songs, and like you said, it comes first. And I totally agree with you. As I was talking about earlier, you guys have been around, for quite a while here, So you're now, one of the hard rock veterans in, the Bay Area scene. And I'm sure you guys have seen many changes over the course of the last decade or so. I mean, but before this whole pandemic occurred, I mean, what in terms of like just the hard rock scene in general around the Bay Area, I mean, good or bad, I mean, what have you guys seen compared to when, say, you were first sort of getting your feet wet back, about 10 years ago or so?
In the beginning, it was a lot of like we would play with. Because the metal bands wouldn't necessarily like accept us. Like I was saying, they're not metal enough, spaced out. So we a lot of garage bands and a lot of punk bands actually. I mean, we all like punk. That's like one thing everybody in the band has in common too.
Okay.
We all like metal too, and we all like, but different forms of different vibes of metal. A lot of us, but like one thing we can all relate on. It was like, oh. Early upbringings, it's always punk, right? So a lot of punk bands we played with too, and a lot of times we just focused on having like a good time and playing the music we wanted to play.
Sure.
That's really it,
Sure, yeah. I mean, well, that's the thing too. You just brought up a good point. I mean, in the Bay Area, it's so unique. Compared to like any other city I've been to in terms of the bands, it's such a diverse sort of, like you said, you don't really have like a straight up, metal scene or straight punk scene. Everything does sort of coalesce with each other and mixes with each other in the Bay Area, which is great. That's what I love about, seeing shows here. There's a lot of originality. You know what I mean? There's not just, I mean, like I said, you'll have a band like yourselves, and you can have a garage rock band or a heavier stoner band, or whatever you want to call it. I mean, without having to genreify everything. But it is so diverse. Where, like you said, I mean, punk's such a big thing here in the Bay Area. In general, a lot of people grew up with punk. And so everything else sort of, in a way, revolves around that, and incorporates, other elements from other genres and, but which is so, like I said, unique, I think, about here compared to, a lot of the other cities out there, with hard rock and metal scenes, which is really cool. But I mean, so you guys now have been also with Italian label Heavy Psych Sounds, which I think is one of the, better labels out there for hard rock these days. I mean, I remember that's Heavy Psych Sounds Fest. That was, I think, about a year or two ago you guys were at, I remember, which was great, at the bottom of the hill. Talk a bit, I guess, about your relationship with them. And how were you guys able to connect, to a European label like that, all the way, from the Bay Area, and in a way to become part of that great roster that they have?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was really we were just fishing and they were on the scene and they were looking to get, and a lot of our friends were on
Okay,
the label too, and a lot of our friends are, yeah, I mean, still on the label, like, and they do a lot for the rock scene, and I know that they themselves are a part of like the hard rock thing, and I know that we're a little different of a band than a lot of the bands that they have on that label.
sure.
But I think we all have similar vibes. A lot of us have played shows together over the years, and that's
Okay,
like where we really kind of mend together a lot of the times. Is like, oh yeah, like remember this one time, oh I know that band because we played with them in this town and that, over
sure.
so many times. And then word gets around and people are like, oh yeah, like I remember those guys, or I remember this or that, or whatever it
Hmm.
is.
Sure.
I think that's really how we got introduced to them.
Okay. Because I know you guys, it's interesting because, the Bay Area is so unique where a lot of bands that are, from here are huge overseas, or a lot bigger overseas than they are actually here in their home country.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, I'm thinking of you guys, obviously, like Orchid was another band that's just, huge over there from the Bay Area that, outside of here, you don't necessarily see them play too many other places or in the States. I mean, is that the way to sort of go these days for the bands, is to really just get over Europe, maybe play some of those bigger festivals, and then you'll get noticed that way instead of touring, the US and doing it the old fashioned way?
I mean, that's kind of where we were at. I mean,
Mm,
we've done a lot of West Coast and we've done the South and stuff like that, but a lot of times we went over to Europe. And
mhm.
the best way I like to describe that is, in it's the difference of like the country and the continent, really. It's,
Sure.
when you're in America, it's like you'll play someplace and you can have a pretty decent show. You'll play in the middle of wherever. You'll play Oklahoma or somewhere, and
Sure.
you're like, I'm just scrounging for something, and you're
Mhm.
like an artist that's out there, and they don't realize like the time and effort you've put into your music and this and that, and it's like, you know what, your pay is like this, and here's 2 drink tickets, you get 2 drinks, and then
Oh,
when
man.
clock strikes this, you get the hell out of here.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then, as opposed to like when you go to Europe, you're like you're like Picasso over there. You're like respected as like a true artist, and they're just like, oh my gosh, like here's a place to stay, and like here's this, and oh, I'm so glad they're like very grateful of the whole
Mhm.
thing. So it's definitely kind of a way to go. Like we always get really excited when it's like, oh, we're going back to Europe. Like they take care of us so well over there. It's like, oh, we're going over there and we're gonna, you know, and then just the culture. The culture is different too. It's like we
Sure,
know what America's like, but
sure.
it's
Yeah.
cool overseas, and someone who doesn't even speak. Like we've played some shows over there and some festivals where I remember like the first time we toured over there, we played Roadburn. We were the last band. We were the dude who puts on Roadburn. It was our Hunting Gatherers album, and it was like the official, like my pick album of the festival. And it was like it did well for us because like people showed up. The room that we played in was packed, and people were yelling out like I've never even been to this country. People were yelling out like play this song, and I'm like
Wow, nice.
that's weird. I've never even been here. You know the name of my song, and I see someone in the front row like singing along with the words. It's just a
Sure.
different sort of culture. They have a lot more respect for musicians overseas, I feel like, than
Mhm.
here. Here they're like,
Yeah.
get a job, hippie.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, I hear too over there, it's like they're fans for life, which is why a lot of bands are able to, I think, to exist and continue to tour and play those festivals there because what I hear is once they love the band, they're going to come see you every time you come around, like, and keep buying your music. Where here, everything's a little more, trendy, I guess you could say, you know?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, like
Yeah.
that's how we've made all of our friends in Europe. It's just people keep coming to the shows. Every time we come back, we're like, hey, I remember you from last time. You know, we shared, you know, we cheers, we shared a beer, like whatever it was, you know. We're like, we hung out here and whatever. But yeah.
Sure. Yeah. No, awesome, man. So, I mean, you were talking about, you know, you're writing new music and stuff. I mean, you're working on a new record. Have you found it, you know, challenging to sort of find, I don't want to say inspiration, but just sort of like what you normally do to channel, your inspiration in terms of writing music? Has it become difficult and challenging to become motivated to write when you know, like there's no live music at this point and, you know, we don't know when there's going to be? Or has it been almost the opposite? Has it been easier because you've got more, you know, downtime and, you know, you've got a lot of ideas now because of all this time and because of all the nonsense that's going on, you know, everywhere around the world? Has it been easier or more difficult in terms of writing in that respect?
I think it's a little bit of both, right?
Okay.
You'll be alone. Most of the time it just comes like a riff will come in my head and I'll be like, I gotta figure it out on guitar. And I'll grab the guitar and I'll start playing it out. And then I'll be like, all right, cool. This is it. And then because of how much time we have, you like really sometimes like overly dissect.
Okay.
What if I used this, if like, well, guitar wise, there's like, what if I use this effect and I did it this amount, you know, like this bar on the song, and then we switched over to this, or like how long, maybe we extend it, and you know, you start like nitpicking a lot of things when necessarily you don't need to. So that's like, it's finding the balance in between that more to where it's like, oh, like, yeah, this is a really cool riff idea you got, but is it? So
yeah, no, I totally get it. So, I mean, I guess, you know, going forward, I mean, what's sort of, I mean, like I said, no, everything's up in the air right now, but what's sort of the I guess tentative plan right now for Glitter Wizard going forward at this point?
Well, you know, like everything, we still like plan and are booking tours, and they've just constantly been canceled.
Sure.
Like, you know, we just recently, because of how things are, you know, canceled a second. You know, we were supposed to be on tour in Europe I think it was during September. Right. We were supposed to be gone all that time. Didn't happen. Right. It was like a hardcore band. Like Americans weren't even allowed in the continent.
Yeah.
And so then we were like, well, shit, like, okay, let's figure something else out. Like, let's, you know, maybe at a future date. Right. So then we got this other date going. We're like, all right, cool. Like, let's fucking do it. Like, right on. We're going back, like no ifs, ands, or buts. And then we just like are now recently like, damn, none of the venues keep hitting us back up. Like, okay, cool. You know, and it's like, well, now let's go on this like West Coast tour thing, possibly if things let up, you know, so that it's like we're constantly looking to play shows because that's like our thing. You know, we love recording music and this and that, but as a band, our real joy is the actual show, you know, being able to bring it live, I think says a lot for a band. And we want to prove it as a band too. We're like, we fucking bring it, like, go ahead. Like, you know, so we're still looking and, you know, waiting, and then things change all the time. I mean, I don't even know how many like tours and mini tours we've canceled within this time. I think it was like 4, you know.
Damn.
But we're still looking. Like we all have the fire. So
sure, that's awesome. Well, I think it's important to do that because once stuff does open up, I mean, the competition is going to be from every band, you know, A to Z is going to be looking to play these venues, and if you already don't have anything kind of booked, you kind of screw with everybody trying to get in there. I mean, they're obviously going to, you know, a lot of these whatever clubs are left, you know, at this point. Obviously, it's going to be a lot of the more bigger names that are probably going to get those slots faster. or get those dates where, I think it's a lot of bands like yourself, like Little Wizard, those kind of, bands like you are going to have to really do what you're doing now, continue just to set up those tours because, like I said, once it does open up, if you already got them booked, well, then you're good to go. And if you don't, it's just going to be that mad dash where everyone's going to be fighting to get those, those dates.
Exactly.
Yeah. So crazy, but I mean, so go ahead, I guess, and just give the plugs out to, our listeners, where they can, listen to some Glitter Wizard music as well as find merch and, just check you guys out.
Yeah, I mean, we have our Bandcamp, you can come and we still have merch for sale up there. I think it's glitterwizard.bandcamp.com. I don't know. Yeah,
Sure.
or maybe the other way, bandcamp.glitterwizard or something. But if you type it in the Google search, it'll pop up. We still have stuff for sale. We just put out the 2 recent covers not that long ago during the pandemic. And those are cool. It's a little fun thing that we did together. And I mean, just be mindful that we're still doing our thing. We're still writing music, and this is who we are. So we're just not going to stop either.
Sure.
We're going to keep going hard and like we do, and hopefully we can hit the scene soon with a show. Whenever shows are available to go, we're going for it. And we're even, hopefully looking into the future of if there are no shows, what do we do then? So just be mindful, and we're out here. We're still existing.
Awesome. Well, that's great. That's why I wanted to kind of get you on too. I wanted to, obviously let the listeners know. Like I said, I know this is, some I think fans are going to be like, well, what's going on with these bands? Are they still around? I guess they're going to be doing stuff. So I'm glad to hear you guys are. And I definitely suggest everyone out there, if you see Glitter Wizard in your town, definitely go check them out. You won't be disappointed. You guys always come with it 100%. Lorfin Terrafor, guitarist from Glitter Wizard. Thanks so much, bud, for taking the time and coming on.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Aftershocks. For more episodes, go to our website at www.aftershockspodcast.com. Visit us on our Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter pages for more news and information on the podcast. And be sure to subscribe, listen to, and review all episodes on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and all other podcast platforms. For your music listening pleasure, visit our website or go to www.shockwavesradio.com. For all comments and questions, please email us at info@aftershockspodcast.com.
All right, everybody, another great interview right here on Aftershocks TV. And before we go, just want to remind you one more time, make sure you get over and subscribe to the CMS Podcast Network, cmspn.com. You can watch, you can listen, you can subscribe to everything that we do, not only us, but the classic metal shows, Shockwave Skull Sessions, Talk to Me. It's all there, one site, get 4 great shows, never have to do anything again but be entertained. So check it out, cmspn.com, cmspn.com, cmspn.com. Until next time, folks.